This would be a great spot to bleed out and die.
Yeah, it's gorgeous out here. Did you ever get that intro written?
No.
Dude, I'm supposed to write the body with all like the experience, knowledge, and information, and you're supposed to make it flashy for YouTube.
No, that's Drew's job.
Oh. Well, we can always just have him kill us.
Could be a good intro.
Could be.
The split rig style chest rig has regained popularity in the last few years as if it was a brand new design that no one else had seen before, with fancy buckles up front, gear all over your body, and used by darn near every gun tuber out there. But this is not a new design. This is actually a very historic system that we are starting to return to. So why? Why have we departed from and then started to return to this split rig style chest rig?
While a split rig like this might not be for everybody, if you need to carry your fighting gear and some sustainment gear, and you want to be comfortable while you're moving, while you're in the prone, a split rig can make a lot of sense. And so while we don't want to just chase gear trends, I think it bears an investigation to figure out why they've been so popular, why they're making a comeback today, and if they can apply to us as prepared civilians.
Now, it's also worth noting that this is a continuation of a topic that we've hit in the past. So a couple months ago, or close to a year ago now, we talked about the importance of not modeling your gear after the GWOT heroes, you know, the Special Forces, Navy SEALs kind of character that is only wearing 3 magazines and a back panel, and that's it. Instead, for the prepared citizen, it makes a lot more sense to be responsible to carry your own gear because we don't have an extended supply chain. So if you missed 1 or 2 of those videos, you can go back and check that out, but we never really went into detail about what chest rig we like or what designs we prefer, and the split rig really takes this category to the next level. So in this video, we're going to be explaining to you guys why it fits that role so well, why it's so versatile, and as Jonathan mentioned, what it does for us that other chest rigs don't. So Jonathan actually has experience. You've worn these split rigs for a long time. You've worn a bunch of different chest rigs, both in the military and taking classes at Darcy and out on the flat range. So thank you, Fisher, for being here.
Man.
The sub button is down below. So is the unsub button.
Why did you say that?
Both do exactly what they tell you they do. Patreon's only $5 a month, and with that, let's get into it.
Guys, this content is free on YouTube for you every single week, and there are some sponsors that make this content possible for us to continue to make every single week. Now, first and foremost, we have Avon Protection. Now, when we're thinking about layering systems, whether it's chest rigs and armor and cold weather gear, we also should consider protecting ourselves, our respiratory system. I'm a little bit sick right now. Probably should have thought about wearing a miter mask when I was running around in the middle of the night. No one cares about that. So if you're worried about protecting yourself in regards to CS gas, powdered cement, any of the other stuff that could mess you up, I would look at a miter mask. Now, sure, you could go to Home Depot and go grab a 3M mask, but it is not going to work as well when you start to implement a helmet, night vision, or shooting. So the miter mask is a very small, lightweight, quality build just to protect your nose and your mouth, your respiratory system. Keeps you up and going so you don't get sick like me. If you're curious about these miter masks, go check that link in the description. Next, guys, we have 100 Concepts. So they've been very well known for their light caps that go on the end of your rifle lights just to protect from NDs or the reflection that could come off of your light, but they're also making kill flashes that go onto your red dots or scope caps that go out in front of your optics, as well as pack scrims. So if you want to cover up your Vertex backpack and blend it in a little bit, you can easily just grab that scrim, peel it off, or add a little bit of protection. So if you guys are looking for 100 Concepts products right now through November 21st of 2025, they are running a 15% off discount for the email chain only. So sign up for their email chain, save 15%. Next, guys, we have Wetwrx. We're talking about Wetwrx a lot and highlighting a lot of their products in this video, from split rigs to slick plate carriers. But another product that I love from Wetwrx is their Wraith Hood. So if you're wanting to blend into your environment, I know at least over in Ukraine, a lot of people are using hoods like this. The reason I like this is American made and it's very lightweight and breathable. So it doesn't soak up and hold a ton of moisture and get super heavy. Also, it fits into a cargo pocket if you need to. It's a little bit tight, but you can at least pack this down and then have a Cobra hood of some kind. Now this one is called the Wraith hood. He makes it in a whole ton of different colors and patterns. So if you're curious about that Wraith hood, go hit that Wetwrx link in the description. And lastly, we have ammo squared. Now, I know a lot of us are very painfully aware of the fact that ammo is getting ultra expensive. I have over 250 rounds of 5.56 on me right now. And if you want match ammo, it's getting even more spendy. And it would be awesome to be able to hit the range and shoot drills with your entire loadout. But again, that cost gets a little bit rough. Now, what Ammo Squared offers is a way to log onto their website and choose $5 a month, $50 a week, $10 every other week, whatever it is that you want, and it will automatically pull that, and then it will put it into the kind of ammo that you select. So I want home defense 9mm, I want match 5.56, and cheap 308, whatever it is that you want. And then as soon as you get to a certain amount that you set, it will auto ship to your house. Or let's say that you're traveling and you want to have that shipped somewhere else so you're not flying with a bunch of ammo, you can totally do that too. So if you're curious about Ammo Squared, go check them out. Awesome service.
All right, so as mentioned, the historical context around the split rig, this is nothing new. This design has been around for a long time. And if we take it all the way back to D-Day, there was a kind of a famous assault vest that was tried for a little period during World War II, where you simply throw your vest on and you're carrying everything from your radio to grenades to magazines to medical.
It's a lot of stuff for one guy to go camping with.
But the design was just not really that good, and a lot of GIs went back to, or just stuck with, their belt and suspenders style, which, to be honest, is still kind of the same idea. It clasps in the front, we have an H or X harness, and it's worn more at the belt style than at a chest rig, which is traditional for split rigs today. But that concept of I grab one piece of kit and I have everything is really what we're starting to roll back to, as opposed to the direct action system where I have a plate carrier and then I have a belt and then I have one piece that does everything. And then we get into the Vietnam era.
Yeah, so getting into like Korea and Vietnam, we had like the 1956 and the M1957 style LCEs. And while Josh isn't wearing the period correct, it's a good example of what that kind of looks like, where it's essentially a belt and suspenders, just like kind of what we talked about with World War II. So this design, you know, through World War II, specifically like the Pacific Theater, Marines had a lot of experience in the jungle and doing long dismounted movements and going through a lot of ammunition. So as we moved up into the 80s, soldiering changed, right? And equipment changed, technology changed. Soldiers needed to start carrying more stuff on them. So that evolved with things like the Pattern 83 battle jacket, where you started adding more real estate, more pouches, the ability to carry, you know, not only ammunition, but also things like binos, like rangefinders, like your 24-hour pack that's, in this example, sewn into the back. So with that increased capability came the increased need to carry more stuff. And this one in particular made a pretty big impact just because of it's pretty unique looking. It's in a lot of movies like Elysium.
I'm pretty sure that's not it.
That's not it at all.
Blood Diamond.
Mad Max.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's made its waves in Hollywood for its look, but it also made a lot of waves in the tactical and gear industry because of its utility, and its ability to carry all your stuff in one rig, much more so than the older style belt kits with just suspenders.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a lot more like the Normandy D-Day style assault vest, but it's the grown-up version that's designed a little bit better. It carries the weight a little bit more, and it's capable of carrying 10 to 12 30-round AR magazines, plus grenades, plus water, plus land navigation equipment. So the full system is now, again, not just carrying 3 magazines. They're carrying far more ammunition, and it's sized to a point, all of the pouches, in a way that if you grab an AK, if you grabbed a FAL or a G3 or something like that, the system was still capable of carrying more than just an AR. So if we just talked about this system being designed over and over, but the H harness and the split rig style was successful for so many years across many different biomes, from the jungles of Vietnam to Africa, why did we ever depart it? Why are we returning to it today? And what caused us to leave that design?
Yeah, I mean, so as with most things, especially in the gear world, things follow military trends. The global war on terror, especially through the 90s and the 2000s, body armor improved a lot with the technology, new materials, ceramics. And so body armor became more usable, more user-friendly. And then you pair that with the, quite frankly, very risk-adverse leadership that we had in the military.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
Back in the early, in mid-2000s. And they were very concerned about casualty numbers and making sure as few people died as possible in what was becoming an unpopular war. So they loaded up the soldiers with body armor. It became mandatory. When I was deployed back in like 2008 and then again in 2010, there was no option. There was no like, hey, it makes sense for this mission to not have body armor and we'll just run slick. That was not an option. You had to run full body armor, either the interceptor body armor or the IOTV, the improved outer tactical vest. We called it the tactical turtle because you were literally loaded up with so much armor. You had the whole full plate carrier chest rig. You had the neck protector, the shoulder protectors, the groin protectors. You had like 40 pounds of kit. So what we ended up doing was attaching our pouches directly to the molly of the vest itself, because the last thing we wanted was more additional weight, more additional nylon stacked on top of each other, making us more and more cumbersome. What I think you need to look at first is the nature of that conflict and the global war on terror in general. It was a very mechanized conflict in the sense that we always had vehicles, right? We were either in Humvees or MRAPs or Bradleys. We had helicopters on standby. So we were constantly in vehicles, getting in and out of vehicles. And so our kit had to make sense for that role. And also being armored, for like we talked about the risk adversity thing. Second to that is also the logistics and supply chain that were available to us. A lot of other vets don't like to kind of admit it, that we were kind of playing war on easy mode.
Yeah, it wasn't easy to pretend that crap was good.
We had basically infinite resupply, infinite support, air support. We had all these additional assets that were there to help us. And that's not the case across the board. There's a lot of guys up there in the mountains of Afghanistan by themselves.
Yeah, you got that right.
And they were actually more adversely hurt by the gear policies because they were having to go climb up mountains in full body armor.
Your knees, your back,
yeah,
your neck.
and they were having to carry a ruck with like 5 days worth of stuff. Those poor guys.
Yeah, you got that right.
But just going back to like the logistics supply chain, the mechanized nature of the conflict, those really influenced why gear was set up the way it was. And then that translated to the civilian market, right? As veterans, we came back from that war with our experience, assuming that it was going to be applicable to us as civilians. And then a lot of veterans get into the gear industry and start creating gear to emulate what really did work well for them in that scenario. And that just trickled down. And then now as a prepared citizenry, we've started to thinking critically about how does this gear apply to us in our use case. And that may not be the same as it did when we were deployed, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah, and that makes sense how we're starting to come all the way back around to, I don't have an infinite supply chain. Maybe I have a vehicle, but it's not always going to be 100% reliable for some other military MOS to refuel or work on my car. And so I may be walking a lot if things really go wrong. And if that's the case, my gear has to support me in that way. All right, so let's talk about the design and why this applies so well, especially today with some of these new modern take on materials going into the split rig. So first and foremost, the design itself, where the pouches are on your sides more than they are on your front and back, means that you are placing the weight in a more advantageous way for your body to carry that weight. So as opposed to a plate carrier where I may be stacking 6 mags or 3 mags and extra gear all up on front, that weight in that design wants to kind of pull me forward. And if I'm getting off balance, man, that starts to mess up my ankles, my hips, and my legs. They're just getting more fatigued. On top of that, when you do that kind of thing, there's pressure on your shoulders, on your traps, and over long periods of time, if you're walking, if you're climbing hills, if you're doing anything other than sitting in a vehicle, that weight in that location really starts to wear down on your body and you're burning calories. You start getting headaches just because you are putting extra pressure all up on the front of you. And the way to counter that is by putting weight on your back. So now you have front to back kind of weight as opposed to carrying weight on your sides and on your front. It really just starts to displace where you are carrying the majority of that weight, and that really helps in longer range foot mobility. Now there's also something to be said about the fact that it clips in the front and being able to do a bit of a layering system with a split rig. How can you speak to that?
Yeah, so with most split rigs, like the majority of designs have a very adjustable front area here. So all you do is just pull up on the tri-glides and the split rig gets further apart. So this is great when it comes to layering for your winter layers. If you need to put on a puffy jacket or put on a rain jacket underneath this, it's very easy to very quickly adjust your split rig so everything fits underneath it. The other thing that I really like about this is I treat my split rig a lot like a rucksack. So when I'm moving uphill, I will cinch the split rig down so it becomes almost like a chest rig where everything's very tight in front to pull me up towards the hill. That way if I fall into the hill and not off of the hill. And the same thing goes when going downhill. I'll undo the split rig and let it sink down and bring me further back. That way if I'm going down the hill and I fall into the hill and not down the hill. And it just goes again, like even distributing the weight and changing the way it's riding on your body by opening up the split rig and letting it rest on your hips takes a lot of the strain off of your shoulders and especially your back. All my other veterans know about our service-connected back disabilities.
I once played with a broken back, a broken pubis, a broken leg, an infected urethra.
From having everything up front.
Or it's, from what I hear, it's not service related.
Or it's not service connected, I guess. So that's also really helpful just as a morale booster, and not just morale, but keeping you in the field and you know, able to continue working even longer by not fatiguing your body as much. And this brings us into the other thing that typically gets scaled underneath a split rig, which is body armor.
Now, just like the puffy jackets, how you're talking about the ability to loosen or tighten, whereas on a traditional chest rig, you're probably making that adjustment on your back strap, especially if you're adding body armor. Now, I can very easily scale with body armor because there's so much adjustment up on the front. But again, we have to be asking the question, is that the right play for civilians? And I know that you have kind of a good take that just to get your thought juices flowing.
Yeah.
What's your take on body armor for civilians?
Yeah, so I mean, with everything we talked about in the past, body armor being essentially mandatory, that same thought process came into the civilian market as well. And prepared citizens and everyone was always, you know, but getting body armor was a big thing, and everyone's burning plate carriers for a while now.
You weren't cool if you didn't have armor.
Exactly. But I think it bears some critical thought to whether or not you should be wearing body armor. Body armor is an advantage. It does protect you in a certain area from taking what could be a mortal injury. That being said, I think we need to look at body armor in the context of a prepared civilian and the context in which you would be using this kind of kit. Body armor protects your body in a very small area from lethal wounds. It does not protect you anywhere outside of those plates, which are percentage-wise a very small portion of your body. Now, body armor is extremely helpful in saving lives when you can get to a higher level of medical care in a reasonable amount of time. If you get shot in the chest, the likelihood that you're also hit or hurt somewhere else is pretty high. And so in warfighting and in the military, having a medevac that's going to get you to a surgeon to fix all of your other issues is going to help save your life from those other extremity wounds.
Yeah, there's even that like golden hour that the PJs always talk about, where when you can get someone to a surgical room within 1 hour, you have a phenomenal chance of that person living. Whereas if you can't get them to a higher level of care within an hour, your chances of surviving that significantly diminish. So what happens when you don't have that higher level of care that you can get to within an hour?
Yeah, so if you can't get to a higher level of care within an hour or within even a couple days, those extremity wounds, the other wounds that you sustain, are probably going to end up killing you anyways. And while the chest, the plates and the plate carriers will protect you from an immediately lethal shot to a vital organ in your chest, it's not going to save you from that. So in my opinion, when it comes to a scenario where there is no more hospitals, I guess are no more hospitals, or you're not going to have any expectation of a higher level of care, the math doesn't really math for me when it comes to wearing body armor. That being said, there are plenty of scenarios. I'm sure Josh could tell us all about Portland. But you know, in a scenario where there is an expectation, right, that you might get shot, but you could also get to a hospital, I think body armor does make sense because it's going to save you from that lethal shot and you can still get your other wounds treated.
Yep, so this just goes back and really highlights back to one of the first videos that we did on this topic, having the ability to scale with and without body armor. And there's times where it absolutely makes sense to throw armor on. But man, there's also an argument to be made for having speed as your security and extra ammo as your weight, as opposed to wearing armor all the time. And there's a trade-off between wearing armor 100% of the time or having the flexibility to be able to scale back and forth. And again, having a chest rig, which is the split rig, that can very easily adjust back and forth when you are wearing armor or not, is a huge win in that book. Now, I hope this doesn't come across like we're saying civilians don't need body armor. That's not at all what we're saying. It's likened to comms or rifles or suppressors or any of those other goodies. There's absolutely a time and a place to have those tools and that capability. And if you can afford it, it's really good to have those tools. But that doesn't mean that you always have to run that gear. During the daytime, I'm not running nods. If I'm just out shooting with the boys, I may not always be shooting with a suppressor. There are times to use those tools, and there are times to consider this weighs a little bit too much, or this doesn't help me in this scenario, and so I'm going to be willing to set that aside. And if you're going to have that kind of flexibility, immediately tying all of your gear to armor 100% of the time may not help you in every scenario in life. So having that option, having the scaling capability, to us is a huge must.
People, when we talk about not wearing body armor, go to the gym more, bro, get in better shape, bro. That's great and all, but at the end of the day, fatigue is a mathematical equation. You will eventually run out of energy. You will eventually run out of water. And body armor decreases the amount of time that you can work before you need rest, before you need water, regardless of your fitness level.
Now, another space that the chest rig falls in comparison to a split rig, at least a traditional chest rig, is the adjustability factor. I don't care who you are, there are times where you go a month or two without putting your chest rig on, or winter comes around and you're adding more layers, or the boys are saying we're all putting our armor on, and as soon as that chest rig goes on, you are struggling to get it adjusted. Maybe you're already out walking, or you're falling behind, running late because you're taking the whole chest rig off to resize it to you. Whereas again, having built-in adjustment all up front and being able to let your lungs breathe because you were just sprinting and you don't want it suffocating you, or whatever it is that you're doing, having that freedom to be able to make an adjustment on the fly is such a win, just because our bodies change throughout a full year period. Or again, like I was mentioning, you take off on a sprint and all of a sudden you're like, I can't breathe, I need to get a little bit more air. That is such a superior design when you are constantly moving or scaling with apparel or armor.
Yeah, and this brings us to another point that like the split rig doesn't always need to be buckled in the front. So one thing that I love about these rigs is it allows you just quickly to unbuckle, and this allows you to have complete access to the front. So for two things: one, simple things like adjusting your belt, if you need to tighten up your belt or move it or get to a fanny pack or something like that. Also going prone on the ground, getting extremely close to the ground. So whether you're low crawling or you're just prone in a security position and you're stuck there for 3 hours, you don't have magazines and stuff shoved into your ribs as you're laying on the ground. Also, when it comes to precision rifle work, the more stuff that you have on your body between you and the ground can induce muscle tension, which is then going to start affecting your accuracy downrange when your muscles start to shake because you're having to hold yourself in some kind of stress position. Whereas if you just open up your split rig, you can lay perfectly flat on the ground with nothing in between you.
Yeah, Mayflower actually released a product in 2013 which had a zipper and G-hook style, and it was marketed specifically for snipers. The idea that you can splay this open and lay straight down on the ground in order to increase accuracy, increase comfort, was the marketing purpose and the driving factor for that rig. So that is not just a nice idea, it is actually starting to become, has become for a long time, a standard for people who are prone on their stomach a lot as their MOS, as that goal. It just fits the role really well. All right, so as we wrap up the design, there are some chest rigs that give you the ability to scale with a belt, or some that don't allow you to put a backpack on. So let's just talk real quick about what some of your options are when you are wearing a split rig. So traditionally, an old school way of wearing a split rig would be to also have a butt pack on, something at your like lumbar level, an assault pack style, or just a small tiny little 24-hour pack that's maybe just gonna carry your poncho, food. What else would you carry in there?
Yeah, so I used to run that. I used to have I have the Spiritus expander kit, And so yeah, it was a poncho, it was an MRE, it was a couple pairs of socks and a dry bag, and like some toiletry stuff, you know,
stuff
like
that wouldn't
dude wipes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Stuff that wouldn't necessarily be your immediate land nav, chem lights, fighting equipment, but if you're going to be out there, wherever there is, you need some equipment to keep you going. Well, I don't tend to prefer running that, and I don't think you're not running that system anymore. Why did you go away from that, and what are you using today for kind of bolstering up some of what's immediately on your kit?
So I mean, I still do have the expander kit, and I might use it depending on what I was doing. The reason I stopped using it was because it didn't scale with an actual full rucksack. And even a small bag like this, I used to put this and it would sit on top of the expander kit butt pack. But that just wasn't comfortable for long periods of time, or when this ended up having a lot of weight in it. So what I do use, I have a chest pack from Hill People Gear that I can put on underneath before I put my split rig on, and it fills up this area right here. And I use that for like mission specific or scenario specific things. So like if I'm in the role of a designated marksman, for example, I'll wear that, and it has rangefinder, it has my dope book, it has all the little stuff I would need for that role. But if I don't need it, I just don't wear it. So I can scale up for additional responsibilities, or I can scale back down if I don't need it. And then the other thing I use is just like a small 24-hour pack. But like I said, the reason I got rid of the expander kit butt pack was because with a full rucksack, like an actual like 50-liter ruck, it just wasn't comfortable. And if you're moving with that much weight and that big of a pack, you want to be comfortable while you're moving.
Yep. And traditionally, split rigs are worn a little bit lower, just above the belt line. That does allow me to have a larger pack on, still have a lot of gear around me. I am wearing a fanny pack, which is my medical fanny pack, down at that butt pack height, and that also allows me to wear my kind of my go-to backpack, the Vertex Ready X bag. I can peel off the 100 Concepts pack cover, and it just looks like a green backpack. It also blends in really well if I am out in kind of rural spaces. So having a chest rig that is able to scale with your pack, with a fanny pack, is phenomenal. But can you run a belt with a split rig?
It depends is the answer. It depends on your body size and how high you want to run your split rig. I have seen people successfully run a like battle belt, molly belt, and a split rig. What it requires is the split rig ride really high up on their chest, and then to have a long torso. I've got 5 foot 8 inches to work with from top to bottom here.
You're having fun. No problem.
Wow, I just disappeared.
So for me, that is an absolute no-go. As you can see, my rig already rides pretty low, and if I loosen it out, like I often do, it rides even lower to where it's basically on my hip level. I can't run anything on my belt line, and quite frankly, I don't like running anything on my belt line. If you've done a lot of patrolling, a lot of walking and living in the field for days at a time, that's really uncomfortable, at least for me. So I don't miss it, and I couldn't run it if I wanted to.
Yeah. Now, a big reason as to why it's actually smart to let your chest rig or your split rig ride a little bit lower is twofold. Number one, we're going back to balance. The higher that we get our gear up on top of our body, the more top heavy we are, the more your muscles have to work in order to keep you upright. And secondly, man, I don't know if you have this experience, but if you run your gear enough, you'll figure out that reaching for things that are practically under your armpit, or if I had 6 mags, 3 on either side, and one was like almost behind my back, accessing that kind of stuff, getting to your water that's all the way under your arm, it's just not, I mean, yeah, you have real estate there, but you can't actually get to it. Then you end up asking, hey man, can you grab my water? And having that design is not actually helping you. So when you start to allow it to ride a little bit lower, you gain balance and you gain the accessibility to the real estate of equipment that it is that you're actually carrying. There's a lot of talking about the design. Hopefully that helps you guys kind of understand what some of the pros and cons are, what it does for you, and why we tend to like it. But there are so many different designs, manufacturers out there, and a lot of them go about even just making a split rig in a couple of different ways. Some have their own pros and cons depending on what it is that you're looking for. So let's take a few minutes and dive into the 3 favorite designs that we have, and then you can decide on your own, I prefer this one or I like that design. And Fisher, you ran the 34 Alpha from Spiritus for a long time.
Yep.
I'm curious about why you went from that over to what you have today, But first, let's get into what it is that I'm running, the Wetwrx Split Rig. All right, so let's look at the Wetwrx Split Rig. I've been running this for a couple months now. I've played with where the pouches are, and I'm starting to actually really dial it into where I like it. So when you receive this, without all of the pouches and everything on there, it already has 6 cells, 3 on either side, for AR style magazines. So those are already sewn in, which I love, just because when you start getting into Molly or Velcro or any other attachment system, it's not going to be quite as reliable. Almost everyone here in America is already running ARs. So by having 6 on body built in, I'm already up to the infantry standard of having 6 on body plus 1 in the magazine. So a win there. Now on the outside, I have Molly, and I have opted to add 2 more 20 round magazines to the front. So if I am doing any designated marksman kind of stuff, or if I want to pull these out and swap it over as kind of a general purpose style pouch, throw some extra food in there, throw some more water purification stuff in there, I can certainly do that too, but plus 2 20 round magazines. Then over to the left, I have my radio plus an extra battery for that radio with a PTT running up to my 8 harness as well. And then behind that, offset to my left, I have a balaclava, an Arc'teryx an Arc'teryx wool hat, plus batteries for everything that's going to be on body, nods, and equipment for my rifle. So over off to my left, the nods and the batteries, I'm really trying to protect that pouch, if anything. And by throwing the balaclava and the wool hat in there on the outside, that's a form of padding. I know a lot of people will get a pouch and they'll put foam in there. Foam doesn't weigh a whole ton. It can work great, but by using clothing and something that's actually helpful for me, that is going to be a form of protective equipment too. If I need to swap out my nods and I want to put binos in there, my pouch will also accommodate binoculars too. Now then, moving over to the right, I have a multi-tool at a very fast accessible spot, whether I'm cutting something, trying to clip a tree branch out of the way, or I'm actually working on my rifle. Nice to have that right up on the front. And then a larger GP pouch that's holding map markers, a compass, a red headlamp. Let's see if I can do this from memory. A grip of 550 cord, fire starter, face paint. There's a lot of good equipment in here that's kind of the bolstering up beyond what you would typically see for standard fighting equipment. This is what I would typically be going to if I'm looking for anything that's not just like immediate fighting gear. And then right behind that, I have a water bottle as well, so a Nalgene that also has a gas mask cap on it. So now I can also drink out of my water if needed with a gas mask. And I have electrolyte packets and water purification from Canadian Provisions. So now I can sustain myself with water with what's on body. Now, not every chest rig or not every split rig does this, but this one does have the sliders. And the reason that I'm highlighting this is because you can still go buy split rigs that attach in the front via a zipper like we talked about with the Mayflower, or tubes from First Spear. And you wouldn't have dead space in the front when this is actually buckled. These magazines, you could size it to actually touch together in the front. I like having the ability to adjust, and so I went with the buckle design. Now this does mean that you're losing some space in the front. So I have opted to use the Velcro that is on the back of the 3 cell magazines back here to throw a tourniquet on my right side, right up on front, and then gloves on my left side. So I'm trying to optimize that extra space right there if needed, and even still, if I need to lay down and go prone, all of this can splay out and all of my gear gets out of the way. I know some people will run armor underneath and they'll have 1 or 2 magazines in the front. That's great, I understand that, but that does mean that you're still not gonna fully be able to clear your chest and your stomach if you are going prone. Now, as mentioned, there's Velcro back here. Some brands will do sewn in elastic, kind of like the Spiritus that Jonathan's gonna talk about here in a minute. Others will do Molly. So you could be putting more pouches back there with Molly. The upside to Velcro is, just like highlighting here, I can very easily grab a tourniquet or an extra pouch for gloves and slap that on. On top of that, let's say that I was going out to Wyoming or some space where there's grander distances and I still want to be able to have an AR. That's what's in my hand most of the time. And then I have a larger pack with a long range rifle. I could very easily open this up, peel off the back, and I could put 6.5 Creedmoor or 308 mags on the back And with my adjustments on my split rig, now I have on body magazines for both my AR and for my long range rifle, whatever that is for you. You could still do the same thing with Molly, but I don't like fiddling with all those little bits and pieces. If I know I'm gonna grab a bolt gun, I can just take those cells, slap it on back, and now I have everything that I need. A downside to Velcro is that if something does get grabbed in the woods while you're crawling on the ground, there's a slight potential of some of that ripping off, but Velcro is being used so prevalently, I think it's been proven at this point that it's fairly reliable. It's not quite as durable as using Molly, but I'm happy with the way that this system runs. Now, one more thing that the Velcro can do for me is allow me to very easily add or subtract a dangler below. So just how Jonathan was talking about having a chest rig just right up on the front in conjunction with his split rig, I can take the Velcro on the back of my split rig and add a dangler. So down here, I have a Kestrel, I have extra data cards, I have a grease pen, and a rangefinder. So again, this supplements what I need to do along with the designated marksman roll. If I want to peel all that off, save some weight, and not run that kind of equipment, the Velcro just means I can rip it right away, stow that in my car or in my pack, use it later. And again, just as you know, I don't have to explain how Velcro works. It means you can be super flexible with whatever it is that you're doing without having to worry about Molly coming off and on. So not every split rig, not every chest rig has this exact design. Those are just some of the things that I really love about this specific one.
So let's talk through my split rig experience over the last couple of years and the different kits that I've changed from one to the other. I started off, as many do, with the Spiritus 34 Alpha, and I want to make this very clear up front. This is a great kit. There is nothing inherently wrong with the kit. I did end up changing out for a Teardown Systems SNR Rig, but let's talk through how I started with this and where it went. So with the 34 Alpha, it has 6 rows of Molly on each panel. And what that allows me to do is, and to be clear, I still use this rig. This is now my AK rig, so I just keep it set up for that. But with 6 rows on each side, what I end up with is 2 rows being taken up by magazine pouches. And then I have more magazines on the inside. We're gonna get back to the inside here in a second. That leaves me enough room for 4 rows for GP pouches on the sides. And while that may be enough, and it may be enough for you, and this is where it's individually, it's always gonna be different. For me, that wasn't enough general purpose space. And I'm gonna dive into why that's so important to me when I get to my new rig. But this rig served me for 2 years, lots of training, I think 4 or 5 trips to Darcy, and it worked great. What I liked about it again was the scalability that we talked about before with the butt pack and allowing me to have a clean back to run a rucksack. That was huge as well. I know Josh touched on it earlier. It's a feature of both of these systems is the Velcro on the underside where you can attach danglers. So for example, in this kit, I had 4 magazines here on the spud pouches. With an AR, actually with Stanag, those like the metal mags, I could run 3 of those in each of these. So that was 6 mags here. I had the ability to expand that by 2 more on each side. So 6, 8, 10. I think I can math that correctly. I could load up with an amount of 10 mags total. And I think that's something that's really important that you should take into consideration when building out your split rig, is being able to scale up and down your ammunition based on the scenario that you're in or how much you may think you need to go through. It's nice to only carry 6 or 7 mags, but being able to move some stuff around and carry up to 10 to 12 can be really advantageous, especially if you're getting into the trend with FRTs and auto rifles. That being said, the things that I ended up disliking about the Spiritus 34 Alpha was that the interior pouches were sewn in here and they're pre-sized. So you have one pouch that is pistol magazine, multi-tool sized, one that can fit AR mags, and then one that's a little bit bigger that can maybe fit like a 308 mag or something like that. And that left me a little bit restricted as far as what I could run on the inside of the rig. And then with having 6 rows of Molly on the outside, having 2 of those be dedicated to ammunition really limited my GP space, which brought me over to the Teardown Systems SNR Rig. Right, so no joke, there I was sitting in Discord playing Hell Let Loose with Drew and this guy I'd never met, whose name was Jeremiah. And we were talking about gear, talking about split rigs, and I was mentioning the complaints that I had about the 34 Alpha not having enough space. turns out Jeremiah owns a company called Teardown Systems, and they make a split rig. It's called the SNR Rig. And he addressed a lot of the complaints that I had had with my old system. And so I was like, okay, well, I guess I'm changing kits for the umpteenth time. So what's different about the Teardown Systems rig is that it has 8 rows of MOLLE instead of 6. So it is a bit larger. And then it also has the interior section is not configured in any particular way. There's actually 4 different layers on each panel of this rig. You have the Velcro layer that you attach danglers to. You have an admin pouch that you can put maps, really thin items. Like I have one of these Black Hills Design shove tools, shove knives in there as well. Anything thin, paperwork, maps, that kind of thing. You have a taco style pouch that you can use inserts to hold all your magazines. And then you have the MOLLE layer on the outside. So what this allowed me to do was run up to 8 magazines in my kit without taking up a single slot of MOLLE that I could use for GP space. And why that GP space is so important to me is through all my experiences, especially recently over the last couple of years in training, I found that I'm using the other stuff in my kit more than I'm using magazines. When you need a fresh magazine, you need a fresh magazine right now, but you don't always need a fresh magazine. More often than not, I'm using other pieces of my kit. For example, I'm using my pen and paper. Especially in a leadership role, you're using your pen and paper a lot, using your compass to navigate or to give people directions, accessing my water pretty regularly, trying to stay hydrated. My multi-tool is another one that gets pulled out constantly. And so being able to have space for all that stuff easily accessible was basically prime real estate for me. The other thing I want to mention that's a lesson learned over many years is having empty space in your kit. We often talk about having empty space in your rucksack, but having empty space in your pouches is important for the same reasons. When you're out and about and you're training with your crew or you're at a course, you often find yourself needing to hold things that you maybe didn't expect to have on you. You're holding, for me, my example, I'll give you this. Last trip when I was at Tusk, I was the water boss, and something that I was using constantly that I never thought of before was my back flush syringe. So I didn't have space in my 34 Alpha to shove that syringe anywhere on my kit. So I had to constantly go back to my ruck, into my water kit, grab my syringe, back flush the thing, and put it back away so I don't lose it, and then have to repeat it again, 10 minutes later. Whereas if I just had some extra space in my pouches, I could have just opened up a pouch, shoved it in there. So by having all the MOLLE space for GP pouches allows me to have extra space in my kit for things that I may have not known ahead of time that I needed, and I may not need in the future. Now that if I'm not in the water boss position, I probably don't need to have that syringe in that kit. But the extra space allows me that flexibility. And a couple other things that I like about this kit. One, along the taco section with the magazines, there are those little laser cut squares that you can run shot cord through. So you have a way to retain your magazines. I'm very guilty of this, of the flat range isms, right? Where speed reloads and 1R1s and flashy Instagram clips, they're a lot of fun and they look cool, and you feel cool when you do them right. But in reality, reloading your rifle in the field in a infantry-like situation, it's often done from cover. Having the speediest reload isn't really super important. What is really important is that the magazines carry well on you. They're not uncomfortable. You can get to them efficiently, but it doesn't need to be lightning fast. You shouldn't be reloading in the open, trying to do a speed bolt lock reload while someone's shooting at you. So having retention devices on your magazine is key to make sure that actually the magazine is there when you actually do need it. So I like that he has those laser cut into the top there. The other thing is the size. I'm obviously a little bit of a wider dude, right? So this kit fits me well. I can reach everything to the back of the kit. I've talked to some guys who are the scrawnier, you could call them victim weight types, who say basically their issue is that a kit like this essentially touches in their back. So that is a consideration to make. If you're a really skinny dude, having a kit that's a little bit smaller, like the 34 Alpha, and even Teardown Systems, they make an SNR Mini that has less MOLLE rows. If you're a skinnier guy, that's something that you probably need to take into consideration. when looking at split rigs in general. So now that we've talked a little bit about why I switched this kit, let's go through what is in my kit, starting over here on the left. First thing I have in here are my night vision goggles. These are in an S-Tac pouch that has a Tigris liner that keeps them from getting crushed. I'm a huge proponent of having your night vision, if you have it, on your kit. You never know when you're going to be separated from your pack. You may be pushed out in a security position longer than you expected. Now it's nighttime and now you don't have your nods. So having my nods on my kit, super important. So that's the first thing there. Moving on over, I have a radio just in a spud pouch. It's a BTEC UV Pro radio, and the PTT is running back through into the admin pouch and up, so it's out of the way. Next, I have a Justa pouch from Spiritus Systems. In here, I keep I like to call it my arts and crafts bag. This is hair ties, zip ties, rubber bands, and tape. You'd be shocked how often these things come in handy when you're setting up a patrol base, when you are setting a hide site, whatever. I've just needed it so much that it's now just lives permanently in my kit. I have my compass tied down to the inside of the kit, or the inside of the pouch, and then I have my multi-tool, which, as you can see, this leaves this pouch very empty. And that's, like I said, that's intentional. So I have room to put extra stuff in here. Also, the back part of the Justa pouch where you would put a magazine insert is also empty and held closed with a bungee. I can always plus up an additional magazine if I want to grab an additional mag. I can always put more magazines up there as well as another, like I said, like I mentioned earlier, being able to scale up the amount of magazines that you have on your kit. On the inside of this panel is essentially just my PTT and some empty space for paperwork, right? If I have a map or something specific for a specific scenario, I'll put it in there. Easiest way to access that is to open your chest rig up, another benefit of the split rig, and then you can just come in here, open it, and get what's inside. Moving over to the right side of the chest rig, I have a medium GP pouch. Here lives my thermal. If I'm carrying my thermal, it's in there, tied down to the inside with the lanyard. I have all of my spare batteries for all of my electronics. So extra ear pro batteries, nod batteries, laser batteries, optic batteries, all of those are in there. And then I have my weapons cleaning kit. Super simple, brush, lube, rag, very simple field cleaning type kit. And then over to the far side, I have a large GP here. And this is where I carry a liter of water. This is my drinking water as I'm walking around, hopefully refilling that out of a pack. I have a Steri pin in here as well as a Cana water decon kit. So this pouch is basically all about water. And on the outside of that pouch, easy access, is my signaling kit that I have set up with my crew at home for our signaling, methods. So on the inside of the taco, on the right side, I have 2 magazines currently, and then I have what's probably the most grabbed piece of kit that I have, which is my little admin pouch. It's like a Zap XL from Box Cutter Gear. It has my notebook, it has 2 pencils in here, a protractor, marker, and a map marker. Usually grabbing this out to check guard rotation, check frequencies, something like that. So it's super quick access, and it's right here on my side. Last thing I'll say about the Teardown Systems rig is it does have some modularity that other split rigs just don't have. So one of the things that's really interesting about it is that you can take each individual panel off and turn it into its own mini chest rig. So while I haven't had this rig long enough to have situations where I'm actually doing that, it's a really cool capability to be able to take half of your rig and wear it as a mini chest rig instead. If you just wanted to have, say, 2 mags, your admin pouch, and some water, you could take this and wear it as a standalone rig.
All right, guys, I know it sounds like we have only sung the praises of chest rigs all day, but the truth is it's going to be individual dependent if this is actually going to fit your needs really, really well. A few spaces where a split rig may be complex or not fit for you is, man, if you are working in confined spaces, if you're in a vehicle a lot, or tight rubble in an urban area, if you potentially foresee yourself working in a scenario where you just have more confined spaces, it does make you wider as opposed to having all of that gear up front. You now have it over on your sides. Additionally, if you do get a split rig, they typically don't ship with a bunch of pouches sewn on the outside. I have purchased a lot of chest rigs that have all of the pouches sewn in, and then I figure out what fits where. man, if you just have Molly on the outside and you got to go buy specific pouches that fit specific gear, it can change a lot over time, depending on what it is that you want to carry in that chest rig, and being responsible to set it up yourself. If you don't know what you're looking for ahead of time, you can end up with a very poorly established chest rig, which is a split rig. Despite the fact that the design is cool, it still may not work very well for you.
Yeah, and this brings me to something that happened pretty recently. Big shout out to my boy Corbin. He's in my little training crew at home, and he's been wanting a split rig for a while, but hadn't had a lot of chances to get out into the field and train yet. So he held off, and last weekend we got out there, did some patrols, did a patrol base, gathered water, spent the night outside, and he got a chance to really wring out his current gear, which is just like I think it's like a TAPS rig. And he now understands the downsides of that rig and what he's going to want to put into a chest rig, or a split rig system. So having that understanding and building that rig out intelligently requires that you have some experience out in the field using the stuff that you have now. So don't watch this video and then immediately go out and buy a split rig and then buy a bunch of pouches and just hope you put it together. Get out there, train, understand what your needs actually are, and that way you can buy once, cry once, essentially, when it comes to a split rig, and you'll have a system that's actually set up for your needs. Best advice my dad ever gave me. So the best advice my dad ever gave me was probably don't buy something unless you can buy it twice. Meaning that if you're like you're extending yourself financially to get something that you couldn't buy it a second time, then don't buy it the first time.
That was it?
It's probably good advice. I don't know.
That's good, but that's the
Oh, okay. The best advice I ever got, fine, was you can marry more money in 5 minutes than you can make in a lifetime, so find a rich wife.
Oh man, that's way better. Both were financial advice, but your second one was much better. Man.